Welcome to the Achieve Results Now podcast, the podcast that gives you immediate actions you can take to start seeing life-shifting results now. Hey everybody, welcome to the Achieve Results Now podcast. This is Mark Cardone.
And Theron Feidt.
I love a good analogy. You know, I mean, one of the greatest ways I think for people to, kind of understand things and pick up concepts is to relate it to something that a lot of people know.
Right. Yes. Yeah, for sure. And, this one is not going to be a surprise once you hear what it is and what the analogy is. However, we do have a lot of students and a lot of parents and a lot of just people that do what we do or are very aware of what we do. And so I think the analogy is going to stick with them.
I think it's funny. So, we made this topic. So we're talking about fear today, right?
Right.
And we talk about fear in the past, but we really came up with, these three things that you can do to help you kind of hone and maintain your fear. And we're relating it, to a boxing / kickboxing / fighting analogy, which a lot of our students who listen are going to get. A lot of the people who aren't, students, but who, have seen boxing or martial arts will understand.
Right.
And realistically, people who have no idea what we're talking about, you're going to understand it too. I promise.
I think
I promise.
Yep, for sure. Yep. So we the 3-1. We'll come up with the first one that we have because fear. Well, let me back up a little bit. Make sure we're setting this up properly. So, fear is real to you. Now, sometimes fear is definitely justified and important. The fear of crossing a 4-lane highway, you should have a fear of that, a fear of jumping off of a cliff into the water, which I've seen people do cliff diving. I think it's okay to be a little afraid of that, and not to say that you shouldn't do it, but, a little fear. But oftentimes what we really run into on a day-to-day basis is what? Fear that really is just in our head.
Yeah.
I don't know if this is still true. Public speaking is one of the biggest fears. It's larger than death. I mean, possibly that's still the case, but anyhow, I'm sure it's at a high level percentage. Now, is really public speaking really going to, harm you? No, but what happens is that fear can really get to the point where it just freezes you from doing anything.
Yeah.
And so this is what we're talking about, that the fears, maybe daily fears, maybe weekly fears, maybe something that you haven't done your whole life. I know people that haven't, they're adults and they never learned to swim.
Yeah.
Well, I think that could be dangerous because you're probably going to be around water sometime in your whole life. It could happen. So that's something that, people want to work on. And I think that this is a step that can help you towards that.
And one of the fears we don't talk about a lot, there's two that we don't talk about a lot, right? Number one is hanging Christmas lights on a second story on a ladder. That's my number one fear, right? My legs get all shaky on the ladders.
Yeah.
But the second one that's really important that we don't talk about a lot is really the fear of success, right? It's the fear of, and I know a lot of our achievers who listen, one of the reasons we, it's crazy. We procrastinate doing the things that we know are going to improve our life going forward,
right?
Because we're afraid of leaving the status quo,
right?
And sometimes that's in the form of, I'm afraid to leave my job because, well, geez, what if it doesn't work out and I'm going to lose this? But sometimes it's also just I'm afraid to, get fit, and stop eating 30 Christmas cookies because I'm afraid my family will feel left behind and won't love me anymore. And, there's a lot of those little fears that keep us where we are. So I think on both sides of the spectrum, whether it's fear holding you back, or just kind of fear that keeps you from moving forward, I think either one of those is important to talk about.
Yeah, and I think we've done podcasts on fear that went into delved into that even more. So, and I can link those in the description if you're interested in this. I just think this one is going to be just something that you have a fear of doing something, you're procrastinating, and I think procrastination could even be a sign of fear of something, too. So this is really where this is. I don't know if we're going to use this for a phobia that you have of spiders. It might work, but this is more the day-to-day.
Punch spiders, box spiders.
Yes. There you go. Okay,
I love it. Just punch the spiders. It's fine. So let's start with number one. So, so step one is when we really, those fears are setting in. One of the best things that, works for me is leading with action, right? When you are getting into the ring and you're watching fighters fight, you never see fighters just kind of walk in, right? They usually lead with a jab,
Yep.
right? Just to kind of bridge the distance and to warm into the area. And really leading with that action makes, kind of the entry forward less scary.
Right. Yeah. And this is important because it your fear does not subside with you waiting and thinking about it. It only gets bigger and grows. Right.
Yeah.
So anybody with anxiety, if you nip it in the bud quickly, it's way better than letting it fester for a couple minutes, couple hours, and then your whole day is gone, right? And
Hmm.
that can happen to some people. So this is a very good important step, is take action right away. And what we're talking about, like you said in the analogy, could be leading with your jab or just that forward pressure with somebody that you're sparring. Sometimes you don't even have to do a jab. You just have that forward pressure, and they feel that,
Oh,
from you, right?
yeah. Uh-huh.
But that's action. It's not being passive. It's being action oriented and not necessarily aggressive. But that could be one of the areas that you do. But it's more of just, like you said, action oriented.
Yeah, it's action oriented. It's that motion forward. It's thinking about, what small action can I take, that's going to move me out of this fear
Mm-hmm.
and towards, what I want. Right.
Right,
So I think leading with that action is a really important first step,
for
to
sure.
get you out of that and away from the fear.
Right. Don't overthink it.
Right.
Definitely
And
over.
and so number two, I mean, speaking of walking in, right, or moving forward, one of the tips we always give people is keep your guard up.
Right. Yeah. You need to keep your guard up for obvious reasons, because people are going to throw back at you. People are going to hit you back when you're hitting them. In theory, they can hit you. Majority of the time, that is correct. So you want to have your guard up,
Yeah.
and so it's important that in this analogy, your guard up is your mental, right, and making
Yep.
sure that you're not letting um, negative thoughts, when they enter your mind, you're quickly replacing them with positive thoughts,
Yeah.
because fear isn't that you're not afraid. It's that you're taking action in spite of it. That's the courage idea. That's kind of the same thing. So you're taking action. This one could be the action too, in spite of those different people. And so you need to stand guard at the door of your mind and only let things in that are going to help you and serve you.
Yeah, I mean, standing guard at the door of your mind is such a huge part of it, and it's, like you said, it's both the external things, it's what we're scrolling on social media, it's what we're
Right.
listening to in the news, but it's also what our own brain is saying to us at three
Mm-hmm.
o'clock in the morning when we wake up and we're saying, "Oh man,
Mm-hmm.
I'm this, I'm that, I'm the other
Right.
thing," and it's going back to that gratitude and all those things, but keeping that guard up, will help you from getting knocked backwards.
Right. Yep.
Um,
And remind yourself to keep the guard up. You know, and when you're on offense, what we talk about is when one hand's on offense, the other hand's on defense. We say
yeah,
that all the time. When we're training our students, and that's the same thing in this. So as you're doing step one and moving forward, also have your guard up too, because you're
yeah,
going to run into obstacles. I mean, that's just and especially if you're not used to doing something, when you start doing it, it's going to feel awkward. It's not going to feel like it's correct. That
yeah.
doesn't mean it's not correct. It just means oftentimes that it's new to you, so it feels foreign.
Yeah, and it's interesting how you say that because as you move forward, right, as you're taking those actions, there's definitely going to be people out there who say, "Be careful," right? There's going to be people out
Yeah,
there who say, "This
sure,
might be too much for you." There might be
right,
you might say that to yourself,
yeah, yeah,
and that's why it's important to keep that guard up because as you're making progress,
mm-hmm.
that's when the obstacles come,
Yeah,
right? Otherwise, you're just thinking about the obstacles,
right,
So lead with action, keep the guard up,
yep, for
and
sure.
number three, this is my favorite because this is the one that
Mm-hmm.
nobody does, right? And both in the ring, right,
Yeah,
and in
yeah,
life, and it's keep moving,
right,
and,
yep,
I think the worst thing you can do is stand still and just keep firing punches straight ahead,
right,
without thought of angles or different different ideas and opportunities and things like that.
Yeah, I tend to watch old fight videos, boxing videos, and things. And I just saw Muhammad Ali. What an amazing fighter he was.
Yeah.
And when I think of movement, I think of him. Like he could make you miss. I don't know what percentage, but a very high percentage of all your strikes. And now, just because he's moving, his head movement, his body movement, his footwork, just simply amazing, right? Um, and you need to do that same thing. You need to make sure you're agile.
Yeah.
You need to move. And sometimes the answer isn't always moving forward. Sometimes it's just like sparring, it's side to side or a tight angle, right? Or it's circling, or
Yeah.
sometimes it's a little retreat and then attack, and that's the same thing here with your fears. Is it's okay, like, okay, I pushed through it a lot. I'm there. I need a little bit of break. That's okay to back up for a few minutes,
Yep.
and then return. There's nothing wrong with that. Just like fighters, boxing is 3 minutes, MMA is 5 minutes. What do they do after that? Those minutes, they take a little break.
Yeah.
And anybody that's fought, you absolutely need that. Even if you're in great shape, sometimes mentally you need it.
Yeah,
You
and
know,
you know what's funny about that is, not a lot of people know what goes on in the corner,
no,
right? And not only is it, kind of water break, rest break, like,
yeah,
kind of recharge the body, but it's also strategy time.
yeah, for
You know
sure.
what I mean? So I think what people forget about is they forget to, we hear that phrase, I feel like I'm banging my head against the wall, right? Or I
Yeah,
feel like
hmm,
I'm, on the treadmill and not going
right.
anywhere.
Yep, yep,
And a lot of times I think the cause of that is we're trying the same things that aren't working over and over again. And
yeah,
remember, just because something worked, one time, as you progress in your life, like that, that boss gets more difficult to beat
yeah,
as we
yep.
move forward. So we have to stay agile. We have to, be constantly thinking
Hmm.
of new and creative ways to overcome the obstacles.
And I think facing your fears can be a lot like when your day to day. Let's say
Hmm.
you have a bad day. Well, I try not to have bad days. Now, I may certainly have bad moments, and I might have a bad hour or two. That does happen, and I'm sure it happens with you a lot when you're
Yeah.
dealing with all the people in real estate, because you're rolling the dice. It's unknown. I mean, you've
Yep.
never met the person many times, and maybe their attitude is horrible. Maybe you don't even
Hmm.
want them as a client. So you're going to have a bad meeting.
Yep.
However, is that one bad meeting that you have, and I know the answer, are you going to let it affect the rest of your day? No, because how many other clients do you have to see after that? Two,
Right.
three, four. So the one client you had in the morning that was horrible, and you have an attitude the rest of the day, what happens to those other three clients?
They have a bad day.
They have a bad day, and they're not
Yep.
going to work with you,
Yep.
because they're like, this guy isn't professional. He can't
Right.
handle anything, and that's and so movement is a lot like that too.
Yeah.
You have to be able to adjust and move and pick it up and put it down. Just like I do this pen, pick it up, put it down. And that's what you have to do with your problems, with your fears, with everything. And I know it's easier said than done, certainly, but it starts in the mind first. It starts with you deciding that you're going to do this. And let's say you have a bad day, and let's say 80% of the day was bad. What about tomorrow? I always look at tomorrow's a brand new day.
Yep.
Whatever happened yesterday, I want to learn from it. I want to be grateful for what I learned, but I need to start my day fresh
Hmm.
and make it a better day. So that way I don't ever have a bad week,
Yeah.
and certainly not a bad month.
Never a
So
bad month.
right. If I have a bad day, that's as far as it's going to go. I'm not going to let it go past that day.
It's great because we're nearing the end of 2024, and you
Yeah.
always hear people say, "Oh, this was a bad year."
No, my
And when I
yeah,
hear, it's funny because when I hear people say that, I say, like, all of it, like the whole
yeah,
thing, like that's always my
right.
first
The whole
question
thing.
is the
Yeah,
whole thing was bad, and I
everything,
always like to ask, like,
everything
well,
was bad.
did anything good happen? And
Nope,
then they'll
nothing
start
good.
to go
It was
into like,
horrible.
yeah, they'll start to go into all the things that, the wins they had, but
Yeah,
like it's
yeah,
very hard to have a bad year. It's hard to have a month. It's easy to
right.
have a bad minute. It's easy to have a bad hour.
Yeah,
And I
yeah,
think you're right. You're just being able to pick it up and put it down. That helps you
right,
kind of move those angles.
right.
Um, so let's review our steps real quick. So number
Yeah,
one, lead with the jab, right? Lead
yeah,
with action. Don't just walk in cold, right?
right.
Bridge that gap with some action to move you away from your fears.
Number two is always keep your guard up. Whether you're doing the first step of the offense and the other hand's on defense, or just in general your guard up. And that metaphor is stand door the guard of your mind. Make sure that really paying attention of what you're letting input into your brain.
Absolutely. And number three, keep moving. Be open to different angles, different opportunities, different ways to, kind of beat your fear and move forward. That's really important to keep agile. And that wraps up this episode of the Achieve Results Now podcast. We hope you enjoyed it. Please share it with somebody else who would get a lot out of it. And we will catch you on the next show.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening. Hop over to our website at www.achieveresultsnow.com to get your free copy of our book, Ignite Results, 4 specific daily actions to help you achieve results now. You can find us on Facebook at facebook.com/Achieve Results Now. Thanks for listening, commenting, and subscribing. Now get out there and achieve results now.